Hey friends, it's Ryan with The Psychic Lawyer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a treat for you. I've been doing some studying on the presidential election for the United States for 2024, and today I'm going to do a birth chart interpretation of Nikki Haley and providing a few dates that are important for her election bid. So Nikki Haley is born on January 20th, 1972. Her birth time is unknown. And I'm using the Astrology computer system, not really a computer system, it's a website. So this is a free website, and I'm using sidereal astrology here. So if you are a Western follower, it's pretty easy. All you have to do is move the zodiac back 24 degrees to the actual place of the planets. So I'm using sidereal because I want to talk about the nakshatras, because the nakshatras are going to give us the flavor for where the planets are sitting and the deities that will provide the karma coming out of those planets. So let me do a little bit of explaining first. So now we don't know Nikki Haley's birth time, so we had to do some rectification. And in order to do that, what you want to do is put in, first what I did is put in her birth time, or her birthday, which we know is January 20th, 1972. That's an important date, by the way, and I'll get back to that. When I first put in her birth time as time unknown, what the website will do is give you the degrees by which the moon is located. And the moon is very important in Vedic astrology. So if we put the birth time as 12 o'clock noon, and she was born in Bamberg, South Carolina, the moon is potentially in Purva Bhadrapada, the last degrees in Aquarius, right about here, all the way to Uttara Bhadrapada, where I think the moon is more likely located. And the reason for that is the two, Uttara Bhadrapada and Purva Bhadrapada are two very different nakshatras, and they're activated by two different grahas, two different planets. So Purva Bhadrapada is activated by Jupiter, and Uttara Bhadrapada is activated by Saturn. Now the moon is known as, whatever nakshatra it is located in, is known as the Jamma nakshatra. So it is the reason for your birth, and depending on what's going on in the birth chart, if you have a heavy Saturn chart, a heavy Jupiter chart, you're going to actually take on the resemblance of that planet. So, and we use the descriptor words of these planets to describe physical characteristics of people. So I want to just first let you know how I came to the determination that I think Nikki Haley is likely born around 6 o'clock or after on January 20th, 1972, because that puts her moon in Uttara Bhadrapada. That is a nakshatra ruled by Saturn, or at least activated by Saturn. Now, here's the thing, and this is the reason why I think this is likely the case. K2, which is the south node of the moon, is located in Pushya, at about 12 degrees of Pushya, almost the middle of Cancer. Pushya is also a Saturn-ruled nakshatra. And then Nikki also has Anuranda. In Vedic astrology, we don't typically use the outer planets, but I think they're still helpful here. And here we have Neptune, and Neptune's going to be important when you look at the chart here in Anuranda. So she's got all three Saturn nakshatras. If you put the moon in Uttara Bhadrapada, and if you look at Nikki Haley and her characteristics, she has dark brown hair, she's tall, she's thin, she has a more constricted look. And if you want to think about Saturn and the descriptions of Saturn, and it's Shani, right, in Vedic mythology, Saturn is known as darkness, right? It's the enemy of the sun, and darkness absorbs all light. We also have the sun in Capricorn, Uttara Ashada. I'm going to come to that. And we also have Rahu in Shravana. Right in Capricorn, if you look at Nikki Haley, she definitely takes on the characteristics of Uttara Bhadrapada, kind of this Miranda Priestley-like character, where she's kind of a badass, right, in her field. A strong woman out in politics, right? And she has an accounting degree, so she's got a background also in finance, which also correlates more to this Uttara Bhadrapada Pisces correlation, but it really comes down to her physical characteristics. She doesn't have the characteristics of Jupiter. Jupiter is associated with fat, and Nikki Haley is a very fit, tall, petite woman. So she definitely is more on the Saturn side. So I'm thinking that puts her moon at least in Uttara Bhadrapada, and it also means that if assuming, because we're already at about 6 o'clock, give it another couple hours, it's definitely in Uttara Bhadrapada, and that likely means I think her ascendant is probably Pushya, because now you have all 3 Saturn nakshatras, which is not uncommon. We see that a lot in charts, especially prominent people. You'll see all 3 nakshatras activated with a common graha. So I'm thinking Nikki is likely Saturn dominant here. And we also take a look at what Saturn's doing. Saturn is sitting in Kritika. Kritika is known as the sword. It is a sun-ruled nakshatra, and sun is leaders. So here we have Saturn right in Kritika, which is very fiery. It's Agni, right? So this is very fiery, but it's also sun. And she's got sun in a sun-ruled sign, so she's got very, very strong sun, generally speaking, in her chart. The other thing I want you to pay very close attention to, we'll talk about the ascendant. The ascendant might not be on K2 here, but I think it's probably fairly close. And I'll give you my reasons why. The other thing I really want you to pay attention to is Mula. You have Jupiter and Mula. Jupiter is in his Mula Trikone here, in his most comfortable sign, Rashi, which is Sagittarius, and in Mula. And Mula is, for those of you that don't know, is the center of the universe. This is where the center of the Milky Way is located. So we have a supermassive black hole right in Mula. So that is a place of extraordinary power. Wow. And she's got Jupiter there, and we'll talk about what Jupiter is for her in her birth chart. I also want you to pay very close attention to Venus. Venus is in Sheta-Bishak, which is an interesting placement for Venus, because this is where you have to give back to society, right? Because Aquarius is the natural 11th house. The 11th house is a place where, at least in Western astrology, it's Ganymede. It's the cupbearer, giving back to the world, essentially, right? So it is a place of service, first and foremost, and even in Vedic and Western astrology, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So Saturn has a lot to do with service, generally speaking. In the nakshatra of Sheta-Bishak, and Sheta-Bishak is known as the 100 healers. So it has this theme of healing. It also has a theme, it's ruled by Varuna, the deity. And for those of you that don't know Vedic astrology, Varuna is essentially Neptune in Western astrology. So there is an element of Neptunian energy here, but in Vedic, it's Varuna. Sheta-Bishak is known as the 100 healers, a lot of healing here. It also has a connection with Yama, the dead. There's a lot of karma that is packed into this, and it's also astrologers. This is known as the astrologer star. It would not be surprising to me if Nikki Haley has a Vedic astrologer, because Nikki Haley is Indian after all. She has an Indian background, and her first name is, I don't want to get this wrong. I'm going to actually show this to you so people don't think I'm crazy. Nikki Haley's first name is actually Nimarata Nikki Haley. So let me just point the camera up. There it is. I have Google pulled up, and her first name is Nimarata Nikki Haley. So that is her name. Nikki is her middle name. She is Indian by her heritage. So that is her background, which is fascinating because Jupiter here, which is, if you follow Nadi astrology, Jupiter is you, right? So there's other principles that are at work here, but the fact that Jupiter is in his Mula Trikona, his home sign of Jupiter, where he's most comfortable. You have Mercury here as well in Purvashada, which we'll also talk about. But Mula, the deity that rules Mula, is known as Niriti. And Nikki Haley's first given birth name is Narada. So the two are very similar in nature. Niriti in Vedic astrology is known as the goddess of destruction. And there's a link here to Kubera, Capricorn, that I'll also talk about here, but it's known as the god of destruction, and she's got Jupiter here. And think about it like this, Jesta is the place of power, right? It is known as the chief, the eldest. It's Indra's seat. For those of you that don't follow Vedic astrology, this would be essentially the place of Jupiter, the seat of Jupiter. The god of gods. So Jesta, so right next to Jesta, so, second nakshatra from, the place of great power is Mula. So, that's where you wield your greatest power of speech, right? Because it's in the very next sign of Sagittarius. So this is incredible. She's got some great power to destroy, essentially. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the activity here is actually to create. This is Brahma. Mula is a Brahma Trimurti activity. It's creating to destroy, right? So there is something here that you have to build to destroy. And it's a fascinating thing that we're going to come back to, but I just wanted to mention that Nikki Haley's birth name, Narada, and I might be pronouncing that wrong, so I apologize if it's pronounced differently, has very close associations with the goddess that rules Mula, Niriti. Also notice that there is a kite being formed here, a very powerful kite, point right to Saturn, Shani, which is another reason why I think Moon is likely located in Uttara Bhadrapada, a Shani, Saturn ruled nakshatra. So you have Pluto making what appears to be a trine over to the Sun and Rahu. And then you have a sextile right here to Neptune. So Neptune's making a sextile to Sun and Rahu, and a sextile to Pluto. And then in opposition over to Saturn here. So you notice like there's this kite figure. I'm tracing it in blue, right? Very powerful combination to have in your birth chart. That is extremely powerful. And it's all pointing to Saturn. Shani, the stories about Shani is he makes your life easy, okay? He can make you kind of lazy. And it's the place of Vishnu, right? It's the place of government. So Saturn rules Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of government, authority. She's got Sun in Uttara Bhadrapada, which is the last sun ruled nakshatra. That is a place of victory. It is the invincible one. And January 20th, where, place of the sun, is actually the day that the President of the United States is sworn in. Interesting, huh? We have January 6th as the day that Congress essentially passes or certifies the election, and then the 20th is the day that the president of the United States is always sworn in, and it's always the 20th, and she is born on the 20th. And for those of you that don't know, Uttara Shada is known as the invincible one. It's the Vishwa Devas. It's the all-pervading. It is the seat of Vishnu. It's the victor after the war in Purva Shada. So this is where the war occurs. Right in Purva Shada, ruled by Venus. It's interesting. It's interesting. This Hitler had this. I'm not saying there's any connection here whatsoever, but there is a war happening right now in the United States and abroad and other places. And Nikki Haley right now is going through her Venus Mahadasha in the Vimshatori system. So this is where I want to go next. Okay, so and then we have Pushya. I think her ascendant is right on Ketu. Ketu is known as the flag, victory, calling an army. It's known as a good king, Ashwini. So Ketu will give you moksha, liberation. We say it's always something headless. Ketu is also associated with Maga. Ketu rules the nakshatra Maga in Leo. I have a feeling that just given her appearance and the fact that she has the other Saturn-ruled nakshatras, ascendant is likely in my opinion, Pushya, which means it is conjoined with Ketu. That gives her tremendous power. It makes her very spiritual, number one, incredibly spiritual, but something otherworldly. And Ketu activates Mula, okay? So we have the deity, the Vedic deity, Niriti, the goddess of destruction, but what the graha that activates it is Ketu, the south node of the moon. Pretty incredible. And from Ketu, this placement is the 6th house of enemies, opponents, destroying opponents. I mean, Jupiter in Vedic astrology is undefeated. But in here, man, that is an incredible power. And she's got all of them. She's got the whole story, starting from Anuranda all the way to Shravana. So here you make the friend, the alliance. Here you take the throne. This is your power. This is what gives you your throne and how you keep it. Here's the war. Here's the victor. Here's where you tell the people about your story. And here's all the riches, Dhanishta, right? So she's got all of them. So everything's going into Dhanishta, which is empty. And then she's got Shatabhishak, which is where Venus is sitting. So let me show you. If you put, this is the reason why this is important, to determine what Mahadasha she's in. So Moon is sitting in a Saturn-ruled nakshatra. So she starts out in Saturn. If we go down here, I want to go down to 2010. I want to go down to 2010 because this is when Nikki Haley is elected to governor of South Carolina. So she was in, this was November of 2010. She was in a K2 Jupiter. She was in a Jupiter K2, or sorry, a K2 Jupiter Mahadasha, Antradasha. So again, this is, let me just back this up so you guys can take a look. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to get better technology. Sorry, I'm going to invest in a computer to do this soon. So the transit chart here, November 2nd, 2010. K2 sitting in Ardra. Okay, so the axis right now, so you want to take a look at where is transiting K2 in Ardra. The opposite sign. So Ardra is ruled by Rahu, the head of the snake, essentially. This is the tail of the snake, K2, so it's completing a karmic cycle here, essentially. And take a look what's happening. This is absolutely fascinating. The reason why she won this election, right here. Look at what Rahu is doing. In a Ketu ruled nakshatra of Mula, Mula rules 0 to 13.20 of Sagittarius. We shouldn't think of the North Node and the South Node as being separate, basically the same. They're destiny points. Here it is, right in Mula, right on top of Jupiter, which is, she was in her Jupiter Antardasha, right? Jupiter at the crossing of Sagittarius and Pisces in Jupiter, in a Jupiter ruled nakshatra, Purva Bhadrapada. Very powerful Jupiter here, destroying her enemies. I mean, that's number one. Rudra, very powerful, very karmic. I wanted to point something out here. There was something else that I thought was important to point out. A debilitated sun in Swati here. Okay, pay attention to that, what sun's doing, because Venus and sun are arch enemies. Here they are in the same sign. This is known as, essentially a planetary war when they're in the same sign. But sun debilitates here, right in the middle of Libra, right? So sun didn't do so well, sun lost. Ketu takes the flag, even though Ketu's in an opposite ruled nakshatra, right? In Rahu, completing a karmic cycle here. Very, 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 very powerful. All pointed to Jupiter. I mean, sometimes the chart just shows you what to look at. So it's pointing right to Jupiter. Jupiter's in Ketu, a Ketu ruled nakshatra of Nariti, destroying her enemies, man. I mean, it's not any, wow. Okay, so let's now take a look at where she's at. So that was when she won the governorship, okay? Very, very powerful. And Venus was in Libra at the time, so very powerful Venus. Since 2013, Nikki's been in Venus Mahadasha, so she's going through a Mahadasha. She announced her bid for president in Venus Rahu. That will be very important. And the election will be decided when she's in Venus Jupiter. So again, Jupiter is being activated here for her. I'll show this chart in a second here. So this is the date of the election. I'm trying to get this. Sorry guys, I just want to show you what I have pulled up. I have the transit chart pulled up here for November 5th, 2014. And I just want to show you kind of what's going. Oh, it's really blurry. I'm sorry about that. Let me see if I can get this. So you can see it's November 5th, 2024. And just take a look at this chart. It's look at what's being activated. Again, Moon, the public in Mula, once again, activated, basically conjoined Nikki's Jupiter here. Venus. Venus is at 28 degrees, 39 minutes of Scorpio, Jesta. Jesta, again, is known as the eldest, the chief throughout history, if you take a look at presidents of the United States, something's going on with Jesta in their chart, either natally or in transit. Here, Nikki is in her Venus Mahadasha, and her Jupiter Antradasha. Venus on the day of the election is in Jesta, the seat of power. If you look at the United States chart, the United States absolutely is a Jesta ascendant, without question. The United States is a Jesta ascendant. Jesta is activated by Mercury, Bood. Look at right here. Where's Bood again? This Neptune is being activated again. Confusing communications. Absolutely, probably about the election, I'm guessing. Then Moon's going to hit Purvashada, War of Words, and then eventually the winner comes out right here. In Uttarashada, and here's Sun and Pluto, power struggles, but also Rahu. This is when she announced the election. I mean, and here's Mars coming up. She's got to be careful here because this Mars K2 conjunction can be terrorist threats. When Mars conjoined K2 just a few weeks ago, that's when the Israel-Hamas war started. So here we are coming up to something very similar for Nikki, and that is Nikki's ascendant. I think her ascendant is in Pushya. Here comes Mars, at a loss here, essentially, a loss to Nikki. All right. Not great for Mars. But this is really what it comes down to right here and right here. Okay. She has Sun in Uttarashada, the invincible one. She's going to win the war. Venus is in the seat of power on the day of the election, 28 degrees. 28 degrees of 28 degrees of Scorpio. So this is Jesta. Sorry, I was just thinking through this. Bood here, being dissolved. I'm fairly certain that Joe Biden has Anuranda in his chart right here. Bood goes to the 12th sign. That could be considered a loss. Could be. Potentially, but usually the 12th sign, not the 12th sign, the very last nakshatra, or the nakshatra right behind the one that's being activated, is usually pretty good. But this is confusion. This is some confusion around the results. So, but here's the thing: Nikki's got Sun right in Uttarashada. She's gonna win. I mean, power, MAGA. Oh, sorry, that's not MAGA. That is. Sorry, I want to check something quick here. What is it? Oh, Uttarashada. You can also see the kite being activated again in her chart by Mars, not right there. You can see it right there. That was the day she announced her presidency. We can talk about that, but you can see the kite being activated again, pointing right to Sun, the invincible one, right? This is, that's Uttarashada. And this kite right here being formed, again, with Saturn, we have, this is unpredictable Uranus. Oh yeah, that's definitely pointing to a win. One thing to note here, that Shani Saturn is making retrograde in Shadabishak. But the thing is, there's a conjunction with natal Venus and Saturn. But the thing is, Saturn and Venus are good friends. And so is Bood. The three play on the same team, and they're all in. They're all speaking to each other in a certain way here, because this is a Saturn ruled area, and yeah, these two. Yeah, that's very interesting. It's three. Maybe there's three people in the race. There's something going on here with friendship, a coalition, an agreement of some type, partnership of some type with someone younger, perhaps. That's Bood is sometimes younger. That's Mercury. But so the fact that, I'm just going to say it, the fact that Venus is in Jesta, the chief of chiefs, the eldest, the seat of power, Indra, Jupiter's throne, home seat, and Venus is in a friendly nakshatra ruled by Bood, Mercury. Mercury's in a good state. He's in a friendly nakshatra of Anuranda, friendship. There's some delays with healing on this one, but this is very powerful. And the fact that Moon, again, the Moon is the public. This is the mind. This is the public consciousness, is back in Mula, in Nariti, with that Jupiter. I mean, it's just incredibly powerful, because this is activated for her. So the public is the mind. The public they're going to be thinking about Nikki on election day, regardless. So I think Nikki will win the Republican nomination, which means Donald's likely going to jail, or something else will take him out, unfortunately. But the fact that Jupiter is activated here in her chart, Jupiter could be her opponent. Her opponent just being knocked out, not even coming close. So, if you think about it in terms of what's going on with Joe Biden, it means there could be a lot going on between now and November 5th, 2024. Maybe Joe decides to bow out. Maybe something happens with health. That would mean Kamala. This could be Kamala, right? So I guess what I'm saying here is, I think we're going to have our first female president, number one. Number two, I think it's going to be Nikki, if I had to take a look at what's happening here, because this is crazy. And I'm going to go off the fact that I know that the United States has a Jesta ascendant. And the United States also has Pluto almost exactly where Nikki's sun is sitting. So this has to do with power dynamics, changing of the guard, and the fact that the president of the United States is always sworn in on January 20th of the following election year, and the fact that that's her birthday. I mean, I don't know how much, and it's just insane. I think Nikki, she's surging in the polls. I definitely think she's going to end up taking the nomination. I'll say that right now. And I'll just say, I think she's got a very, very strong chance of winning the presidency, just based on astrology, no politics whatsoever. This is not an endorsement of her necessarily. This is just astrological speak, purely. Let me know what you think. This is, a very interesting chart, a very powerful chart at that. And again, this is sidereal. So we're moving the planets back 24 degrees from Western. And I'm using astroseek.com. You can go to that and plug in her birth date. Again, that is January 20th, 1972. I have it placed at 6 p.m. based on her appearance. We don't know her birth time. I could be wrong about this, but I think this is pretty much spot on. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your comments. We'll talk to you soon.